So, this is the new edition of the All Things Richmond podcast. I'm sitting here with Mr. Ajay Brewer, founder of Brewer's Café. I'm very excited to have you. For those of you watching for the first time in this podcast, we like to interview local folks doing interesting things in the Richmond area who have their finger on the pulse of Richmond. And so, thank you, man. I'm very honored to have you here.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, man. So let's start talking about just your background. How did you come to own a coffee shop here in Manchester?
3.5 years ago, I quit my job because I didn't get along with my boss.
Okay. Hopefully he's not watching.
You know, I tell this story so many times. She's gonna see it one day, and that's gonna be something funny. But our mutual friend Preddy and I, we decided to dispersed from the office, and we were going to look for different jobs.
And you were a stockbroker at the time?
I was a stockbroker.
Okay.
Yeah, we worked at an online brokerage firm that gives financial advice, and we acted as consultants.
Okay.
Didn't get along with my boss, quit. A friend of mine whose last name is Baker, and obviously my last name is Brewer, suggested that we open a coffee shop a year before I opened.
Right.
It's like, yo, Aunt, man, we should open up a coffee shop and call it the Bakers and the Brewers. And nobody really knows this, but I didn't drink coffee. I had maybe a cup of coffee my entire life.
Right.
And I just thought it was a genius idea. It made so much sense. His personality, he was an accountant. I was a financial advisor. We had jobs in D.C. working for firms, and we both moved back, had a kid around the same time, and it was perfect. So I reached out to him, told him I quit my job, had no real plans, went after some acting gigs, started doing stand-up at the Funny Bone, applied for a number of different financial wealth management firms, and started planning a coffee shop. At that time, my friend L.C. Baker wasn't in that position to do it, so he was like, you run with it. And the truth of the matter is I just really believed in myself. I mean, I didn't know if I could do it because the whole time I was, submitting applications for real estate companies, wealth management companies. I was looking at relocating, but the whole time I'm typing this business plan and I'm submitting it to investors. And next thing you know, I'm sitting in front of Ron Johnson down at the city, and he's thoroughly impressed with what I wrote down and how I presented myself, and connected me with Hugh Jones of Union Bank. And they worked together, and essentially between the two of them financed this what seemed to be a small coffee shop idea that turned into an unbelievable brand. And I mean, I really had no real plans of doing this. It was just an idea. I don't know if you've ever quit a job or been without employment, but you think about the things that you were thinking about at the cubicle in the office, and then next thing you know, like, you know what? I'm going to go after this.
Yeah.
And it worked, or it's working.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So getting to know you in the short time that I have, it seems like you have your hand in a couple of things, all very interesting and all very Richmond focused. So let's talk a little bit about first of all, you have another entrepreneur in the family, I understand. Tell me a little bit about this person.
So Parker Lee Brewer, at Parker Lee Brewer on Instagram, is my 3-year-old son, avid bike rider. We've done every trail in the city of Richmond, no training wheels. He's got a business. He's got 3 locations of his candy stand.
Make sure they heard you right. So your 3-year-old son has a business.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it.
I mean, so here's the thing. So I kind of believe that I can do anything, and I want this kid to believe that he can do anything. So when I wrote my business plan, I thought, wow, there's got to be something involved with the kid. I didn't quit my job to put my son in a daycare. So the idea was, let's build this kid a candy stand business. When I was giving advice, I had a couple of clients that had $40,000 to $50,000 of income coming in from bubblegum machines.
Right.
And I thought, hey, let's do the math on this. Conservatively, I can get 3 of these out of the door every year and end up with roughly 60 to 70 of them by the time he's 16, and he's producing his own $30,000 income.
Right.
And that was the plan. And somehow that got out, and now you're looking at something that's been an inspiration to folks. But in reality, I don't want to give anything to my son. I want, I'm jumping off the ledge at this entrepreneurship thing, and I want him to jump with me. And he's been able to be featured on Channel 8 News, Channel 6. There have been several articles written on him. And the reality is I get it. It's more of a spotlight on me, but if I can make sure that this kid, doesn't worry about the things that normal folks worry about,
right.
When it comes to paying the bills and stressing about your time and
sure.
The freedom that you want, we all work for.
Right.
If he only knows that I'm going to work for myself for the rest of my life, he doesn't know what it means to be dependent on somebody else.
Right.
That's the best case scenario. So the candy stands just worked good. I had to find something that a kid would like. I couldn't, couldn't create a steakhouse.
Sure.
He loves candy.
He likes candy. Yeah.
It's easy sell. It's a quarter. It's an easy way to teach him a concept of,
right.
Give me something, I get something. That sort of quid pro quo thing.
Now, did you make him practice his pitch? Does he pitch you?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. So, when people talk about the candy stand, in the beginning it was all me talking.
Right.
And about 3 weeks ago, you start to see the fruits of your label pay off because 3 weeks ago somebody asked him about his candy stand as he's sitting at the counter, and he said, "Yeah, that's my business."
Right.
And then she said, "What's your business?" And he said, "Candy." And he's 3, and it's like, they can do anything. They're
sure.
such sponges. Why not teach this kid how to be a savvy business person at 5,
right?
Or at 3, or
right.
at 2. It's possible. So, man, I mean that if I can point to any sort of success that I have, I don't feel like Brewers is successful. I don't feel like I'm successful, but I really feel like I'm doing an unbelievable job with this kid because he's an unbelievable kid. I mean, unbelievable. And because of him, he's brightened up my day, makes the days at Brewer seem shorter and not long and dry. They're always filled with excitement. He partners with a couple of brands here in Richmond, Little Nomad Shop. We promote for those guys, and he promotes for other sort of book clubs. These are not paid gigs. These are opportunities for me to teach my son what it means to connect and network.
Sure.
And now all he knows again is not, hey, how do I work with this company for $1, but how do I exchange, how do I make my network smaller? Parker doesn't know. That's what he knows. He knows what his father taught him and his mom taught him. So, I can sit here and talk about Parker all day long, but. But he's an amazing kid.
Well, that's exciting. I look forward to what's next on in Parker's future.
Man.
That's really cool. So you have you're on the board of a local bank.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
There's a bank that was started by 9 teachers in the 30s here in the city of Richmond. They were all black at the time. It's a historic place. It's been around for pretty much 90 years now. And they want to start growing again. So a guy named Randy Cooper, who's the manager down there, or the president of the bank, is dedicated to making that bank grow. And so it's an opportunity for me and my son to not only help a historic institution that my grandmother knew about, but it's also an opportunity for us to teach through our sort of, experiences, money management. Parker's Candy Stand is not just an opportunity to make money. I'm teaching him that, if you want the Legos, you got to make some more money.
Right.
So sometimes we make posts about, the last post we had was, he said, "Dad, I want Legos." And so I was like, "All right, let's go to your bank." And so we took the coins out of the machine, deposited it, and then we withdrew $14, and he took that to Target, and he bought him some Legos. And those sort of experiences are the ones that I think, the bank appreciates from us. And so, again, just another thing that I can do to introduce my son to a lifestyle that's just, a little bit easier than what I had or what most folks grew up with.
Sure. And is that bank located here in Manchester?
Yeah, it's on the corner of Bainbridge and in Commerce.
Gotcha. So
Richmond Heritage.
Just a few blocks from where we're sitting now.
Yeah, literally 5 streets up. So if he wants to go to his bank, he walks down to his bank.
Right.
That's
cool.
it's unbelievable, man.
Well, now we're on the Manchester topic. So you live here, coffee shop's here, the bank that you sit on the board on is here. Obviously, this neighborhood's gone through a pretty massive transformation in the last few years.
Yeah.
What's going on now? What's next for the Manchester neighborhood?
So, I think so. When I was in high school, my freshman year in high school, Blackwell projects were knocked down. Blackwell projects sat about 5 blocks away from where we are. And the growth from 1999 until now has been very long and very hard. The past 3 or 4 or 5 years makes it seem like it happened overnight. But it's really been a 20-year process. And, we went through this phase of, all right, there's nothing here, to now we're going to introduce citizens and residents. And then the focus was more on building businesses, and I think kind of that's where we are now, is where we're going to see this transform from residential, let's say I hate to use the word dangerous, but a place where a lot of folks didn't want to live, to a place where folks want to live, to a place where folks want to shop. And I think that's the phase that we're in now. And so you're seeing investors, both big and small, get their opportunity to bring something dope, amazing, family-friendly, bar-focused, restaurant-focused, retail shop, just every pillar. There's an opportunity. There's a barbecue spot open, there's a taco spot, art galleries. And I think that's the phase that we're in now is, seeing businesses be able to come into this this community and then thrive, not just come in and for 5 years or for 5 months and then die out. But I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see this neighborhood change into, some people call it Carytown or Georgetown, but we'll certainly see this become a shopping hub again, just simply because of what it used to look like.
All the retail on Hull Street.
It's already set up that way. So from Cowarden, which is Route 1, to Commerce, probably before we were born, was a huge shopping hub.
Right.
And I think because of the transition that's happened, you see big guys like, the multi-million-dollar management companies, and then the small husband and wife team come in with an opportunity and an idea to put a coffee shop, to put an art gallery. And I think we'll just continue to see more of that.
As a resident, is there anything you wish was here that wasn't as far as retail goes?
Grocery.
Yeah.
Grocery store. I know what's happening here, so when I say what I want, I know it's coming. So, you look at more food, I know it's coming. You look at more bars, I know it's coming. There's more art spaces being opened up. But what the community desperately needs is food, a grocery store. We need
Where do you go to grocery shopping if you live here?
So if you live here, you have 3 options that are within reasonable driving distance. One is Food Lion, which is all the way at the end of the city border of Route 1, so between Chesterfield and Richmond, right at Chippenham. You've got Farm Fresh, which is 23rd and Main Street.
In
Shacko Bottom, and then you've got the Kroger that's over there by VCU.
Right.
Now, those are reasonable distances, but as far as having a community store, there is not one.
Sure.
And there are several neighborhoods between Westover, Swansboro, Woodland Heights, Manchester, Blackwell, Oak Grove, Belmead. There's not a single grocery store, so I think that's what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But I guess these things happen. It just takes time for it to come to fruition.
Sure. So okay, let's transition into Stay RVA. You were telling me a little bit about it. I'd love to hear more about what Stay RVA is, how you got involved, and what its focus and mission is.
So I've always felt this way, but the past 3 years I've become, I've gotten a little more vocal. So about 2.5 years ago, I opened Brewers. A month after that, I put a post up about how I felt my son was privileged and would be a leader and example in whatever school he goes to, because of who his parents are. And that, had a conversation that was, dozens of threads long. And some of the replies back were, there's this group that's around that actually is standing for that. And, that's, people who typically can afford private school or to move out of the neighborhood and send their kid to a county school. Those folks were starting to band together and say enough is enough. And so since I was a kid, I always knew that I was a little different. I knew that for whatever reason, my father, my grandmother, and my mother, and my aunt did an amazing job, and I was not the kid that was walking around doing things that I wasn't supposed to. For some reason, I was an example, and there were hundreds of us in Richmond like that. And then I started, you grow up a little bit, and then you become an adult, and you go, wow, there are great kids everywhere.
Right.
And so what separates Richmond Public Schools from Chesterfield? And the difference is the parents, the upbringing. What kind of environment do you go back home to reinstill, the things that you're learning in school? The answer that I kept coming up with is, if you have a single or dual parent income household with somebody who can do more than just go to work and come home. That is, we travel a little bit, we take vacations, we read together, we can go to DC every once in a while. You're not growing up in drug-infested communities, violence. The people who are not exposed to that more than likely turn out to be decent citizens.
Right.
And so there was a whole group of people that felt like that. And so they created this group that they call themselves Stay RVA. And so I joined them. And the objective there is to get and convince folks who live in the city to stay in the city and send their kids to the school systems in which they reside. I always use the metaphor of Deep Run versus Armstrong High School. Arguably, Deep Run is the best high school in the area. Arguably, Armstrong is one of the worst high schools in the state. If you take every single student out of Armstrong High School, their circumstances, keep the circumstances the same though. Just lift them out of that school and put them in Deep Run. Take all the kids out of Deep Run and put them in Armstrong, but don't change any of their circumstances. I guarantee you Armstrong will become the best school in the state. And the reason is because of their parents. What kind of community do you go back home to reinforce those standards? And I was just tired of folks who either looked like me or didn't look like me, but had the socioeconomic power to put their kids in position to win. I always found it difficult for them to not actually fight for a cause. And I just, I got linked up with these guys because they stood for the same thing. And it was just good. It was refreshing to see because it's not just that group. I mean, there are tons of groups, Mayor's Youth Academy, Junior Founders Club, Groundwork RVA, Code VA. There's so many different groups that are taking it upon themselves. This is a political question, so I'll give you a political answer that, I don't really agree with the Tea Party, but they came up with this slogan that really stuck, and that was "We the People." And they peeled that, I guess, from the Constitution or whatever, but that's the reality. The reality is that people are the only people that can change. The government can they can give whatever type of money, they can not give whatever type of money. It is only up to us to make the change in every circumstance. In order to reduce crime, it's the people. In order to improve the schools, it's the people. It's the people that have the power, and I just wholeheartedly believe that. I believe that for myself and my son. I believe he's going to be an example, whether or not he's at this school or he goes to a private school. And we got to start believing in our kids. Otherwise, we'll continue to be okay. If I'm selfish and I go, oh, my son won't be challenged and he won't be his best self in that environment, so I'll put him over there. Parker will be just fine. Right. But because he's not there, there's another example of somebody that you could look up to, but that's not there anymore. And you got to change those roles. We got to change that mindset.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, obviously, the Richmond Public Schools, I know Mayor Stoney's put a huge focus on the kids and the schools, but it's not something that, he can do by himself overnight.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's going to take a lot of people working together to help the problem. So that's fantastic. Okay, so let's transition to Manchester Manifest. Tell me about what that is.
Yeah, so, because I opened up the shop, artists and people who do cool things come to me and say, I got an idea.
Right.
2 years ago, we had an idea to do a festival. Robin Miller's property, which is sitting right behind us, used to be just a big green field before they started the development. And so he was kind enough to allow us to have a music festival on his yard. And it was unbelievable. I mean, it was the first thing I had ever done, and the community received it well, and there was music all day long, and at night, and people were coming out of their houses like, oh, man, this is, this never would have happened 20 years ago.
Right.
And so that was the fall of 2016. 2017 comes around, we think, wow, let's not just do one, let's do a series of them. The best way to do that is on a Friday or Saturday. So we picked First Fridays to give an opportunity to folks on South Side to go out, hang out, and not have to, essentially go too far. Because that's the theme of Richmond, really. There's two places to hang out, really, Fan and Shockoe Bottom.
Right.
But if the community members of each of these neighborhoods didn't, if they took it upon themselves to bring those events to their neighborhood, it'd make Richmond a more balanced city.
Yeah.
So I linked up with a guy named Ray Fields. He's an art dude. He really likes bringing people together to have fun around the arts. And we planned a series of First Friday events where we bring out bands and DJs. And the last one we did, we had 20 vendors, selling jewelry, selling food. We had food trucks come out. The ABC board has been kind enough to allow me to sell beverages outside because it's literally right next to my plot of land. So, and we cut off the streets, and so we allow folks to come out, have a good time, listen to some good music, see some artists paint, have some good food. And so we do that every First Friday. So what started off as a festival turned into a monthly First Friday event. We haven't done one since October, so we don't do the winter months. And we're going to start the next one in April, so a couple weeks away, First Friday.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Wow. I mean, you got a lot of things going on. Do you sleep ever?
So I tell people this. I do sleep. I feel like I'm not. I feel like I do a lot, but I cut it off at like 11 or 12. So between the hours 11 and like 7.
What time? Are you here every day, or?
So I'm here every day. So this is the great story about opening up a business. You got to commit yourself to working really hard. And so for the first year or so, I opened and closed the shop, give or take a couple hours here and there every single day. And then about a year into it, we got a little busier. And so I stopped working Monday through Friday in the morning. And so I only work in the afternoons and on the weekends. And so since we've been open, I've been able to take a backseat a little bit. I do work. I still work every day, but I don't have to open and close.
Right.
And you begin to start to see the fruits of your hard work. And so I kind of work every day, but I kind of don't because this is a job for me right now. I got a 3 o'clock meeting. I gotta everything that you do turns out to be a job or a meeting.
Sure.
And so although I'm busy all day long, I'm not opening up the shop at 7 o'clock and working until 9 o'clock every day. I've been able to create a little bit of flexibility just through hard work.
Sure.
So.
Well, yeah, man. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about?
Oh man. No, I mean those are the 3 things that I care most about: my son and my family, my school, the kids here in the city, and then this coffee shop. I think. If more people felt like they could change the world, we'd live in a better place. And too many times we fall victim to this city's not good enough, I need to go to D.C. That school's not good enough, I need to send them to private school. Sure. Well, instead of you can turn that around. You started your own company. You can start your own company. You can send your kid to that school and be an example, as opposed to somebody who just fits in. Sure. And I want statues built after me. I want to be able to change the world. I want to teach my son that, and I want more people to feel like they have the ability to change. It is not up to Stoney and Trump and Barack Obama and Putin and everybody else. It's not up to them. Those guys don't make any decisions in your life. Sure. You can decide to make this world a better place, or you can decide to just live in it and exist in it. And I'm deciding to make it a better place. Well, as a fellow Richmonder, I want to say thank you for all that you're doing for this area. And I agree, if more and more people like you, Richmond would be even awesomer than it is. So keep up the good work. If we can help in any way, let us know. And thanks for your time. Man. I appreciate it. Thank you, dude. Thanks, appreciate it, man.